Hello, my name is Melissa Deas. I currently serve as the Chief Resilience Officer for the District of Columbia, which operates within the district's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Agency. Our agency is the central coordinating hub for the district's preparedness, response, and recovery operations for both natural and man-made hazards. In September of 2022, the district released Keep Cool DC, a plan to prepare for extreme heat in the district. This was a project that I began in my prior position with the DC Department of Energy and Environment and continue to support in collaboration with that agency in my new role. Today, I will provide a bit of background on why we developed this plan, what research preceded the plan, and some of the policies that are featured in the plan. However, before I get into the plan, I want to talk about my friend Philip. Philip died in July of 2021, 30 minutes outside of Berkeley, California. The cause of death was heat exposure. Philip and I went to graduate school together. He was a brilliant and skilled urban planner, a devoted environmentalist, and a proud father of 2 children. He was also one of the nicest people you have ever met, one of those rare people who truly listen to those around him with care. On top of all that, he was an impressive athlete, a dedicated long-distance runner. And unfortunately, this hobby and warming temperatures took him from the world far too soon. In 2021, when Philip was just 37 years old, he went for a run and disappeared. Thousands of people volunteered to search the hills by foot, using drones, pulling what data they could from Strava and other online tools to try and find him. 25 days later, they finally found his body. Reviews of his biometric data on his watch suggest that he likely died hours before the search party had even begun. It was 101 degrees on the ridge that day, and even though he was well trained, he became dehydrated and likely very confused. In most of the district's work on heat, we focus on older and younger people, those without air conditioning, those who work outdoors. But athletes are another group at risk of extreme heat. Those who are highly trained and in shape don't show signs of overheating at first, since their bodies compensate well. But then they crash. Their hard-working muscles heat their body from the inside. It burns through fluids. Unless someone stops exercising and gets out of the heat, they become confused, delirious, and their body seizes. That is likely what happened to Philip. In doing my work over the years, I have noticed that people tend to discount the danger of heat. It is a silent killer. And so often, we can't actually point to extreme heat being the cause of death or adverse health impacts. But it is a real threat. While I didn't get into this work because of Philip, I remain committed to working on extreme heat because of him. If I can save even one more person from extreme heat death, then I have done something worthwhile. So on that note, let's talk about what the district is actually doing. The Keep Cool plan is many years in the making and was preceded by many planning efforts before it. In 2015, the district first embarked on developing climate scenarios, finding that climate change will mean that the district is getting warmer, wetter, and less predictable. The district's climate scenarios found that temperatures have been trending dramatically warmer since the previous century, in line with what we are seeing in most places. We understand that this is due to man-made climate change, but also increased urbanization that contributes to the urban heat island effect. Average annual temperatures have increased 2 degrees Fahrenheit during the past 50 years and are expected to continue to rise. Average summer highs are expected to increase from our historic 87 degrees Fahrenheit to between 93 degrees Fahrenheit and 97 degrees Fahrenheit by the 2080s. As average temperatures rise, the risk of extreme heat will also increase. Historically, the district has had 11 heat emergency days per year, which we define as days above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. We are expecting that to triple by 2050. By 2080, we may see as many as 75 extreme heat days. This means that we won't only have more hot days, but also more heat waves, longer and intense heat waves. Heat waves are particularly dangerous because it means that those who are exposed never get a break. So those projections fed into the district's climate adaptation plan, Climate Ready DC. That plan specifically called for the district to reduce the risk related to extreme heat. It also recognized that there was more we needed to do to understand the urban heat island in the district and called for us to conduct thermal mapping. In partnership with NOAA, we did just that. Through this mapping, we have been able to better understand which parts of the district are warmer than others. This has also been an important communication tool. The maps have been featured in National Geographic, the New York Times, the Washington Post, among other outlets. They are stimulating conversations about how the urban heat island works. They show that Rock Creek Park is over 16 degrees cooler than our hottest neighborhoods. This means that some neighborhoods may be experiencing a heat emergency when others are not. We also mapped nighttime and morning temperatures and have a better understanding of which neighborhoods actually cool off and which ones stay warm. The next plan that I'm going to talk about is Resilient DC. Resilient DC connects and amplifies other district plans, recognizing the interconnections between housing, climate, economic development, technology, and more. Unsurprisingly, discussions of the urban heat island and supporting policies that take a neighborhood-based approach to extreme heat planning were featured heavily in that plan. That plan also calls for launching a data-driven campaign to reduce the urban heat island. Additionally, we have learned over these years that extreme heat is not something that is just an issue of a Department of Environment or an emergency management agency. It impacts health, public safety, and infrastructure. Many people are surprised to learn that increased homicide rates are associated with high heat. We increasingly recognized that we needed an interagency and comprehensive plan specific to heat. Now that we are understanding the problem in a deeper way, the district needed to come together to identify our policies for keeping the district cool. And we knew that the plan did not only need to be an interagency plan, but also needed to be grounded in how the community understood and wanted to see policies around heat. We had to be a bit creative about how we did community engagement, since this all happened in the midst of COVID. We held 4 two-hour focus groups to get deep feedback, and also used a survey designed to be representative to get broader feedback. In doing this community engagement, we wanted to be intentional about getting feedback from those who were most impacted by heat. We also wanted to understand our geography of risk. Therefore, we used our NOAA-supported heat maps to create various heat risk maps. So here, the Heat Sensitivity Index looks at social factors of risk. Just as some neighborhoods are more exposed to heat, some residents are more sensitive to heat, meaning they face greater difficulty coping with, adapting to, or recovering from the heat. This map considers age, health status, income, English proficiency, among other factors. In the areas of darkest purple on this map, we know we want to deploy strategies that will increase public awareness and safety. The heat exposure map combines measures of air temperature, tree canopy, and impervious surface area to evaluate which areas of the district are most exposed to heat. In those areas, we know we want to deploy strategies that will bring down temperatures. We combined both maps to create a sensitivity exposure map to identify those neighborhoods that are most at risk from both factors. We made sure to include residents who were from those communities in the darkest colors here in our focus groups, and who are also in the demographic profile we know to be most sensitive to heat. Some of what we learned from these discussions is that most people prefer to stay in their own homes during periods of extreme heat. Many residents are unaware of existing cooling resources, such as cooling centers, and even when people have access to cool spaces like outdoor parks, they aren't going to use them if there are safety or cleanliness concerns. The focus group allowed us to hear personal stories. For example, while air conditioning is a popular and effective way to stay cool indoors during the summer, some apartment buildings charge residents an extra fee for window AC units. This can lead to problems. For example, one resident's apartment building charges a fee per AC unit per month. To save a little money, this resident used her window AC unit with the window shut. However, without proper ventilation, waste heat from the AC unit made its way into the room, and the lack of circulation prevented a breeze, amplifying the heat. The woman ended up having to seek medical care after experiencing heat stress and difficulty breathing. Similarly, we heard from one resident who remembered a summer day when he had to stop and rest in a bus shelter while commuting due to fear of passing out. He said there were no other places to stop and rest under shade because it was all residential buildings, emphasizing the value of trees and shading structures on high heat days and in commute areas. Given all of this feedback, as part of developing the plan, we integrated a public education campaign about heat safety and effective solutions for cooling homes directly into the plan. A lesson that we have taken to heart is that we need to be continuously communicating practical things residents do to increase their preparedness at home. For example, this slide shows tips for using ceiling fans effectively. So the actual plan's policies are divided into two sections. The first is policies that physically cool down the city, and the second are policies that make residents safer. This first section recognizes that because of the urban heat island effect, certain neighborhoods retain more heat as buildings, roads, and other hard surfaces replace trees and green spaces. However, with thoughtful planning and design, we can equitably cool down the district. While I won't go into every category, here are the main buckets within this section. Increase cool spaces, design for heat, enhance tree equity, and keep learning. The basic idea here is that we can provide people areas with shade or water features throughout the district to be safe. As we develop new buildings and infrastructure, we want to make sure that we aren't exacerbating the urban heat island. We know that we have fewer trees in some neighborhoods, and we want to fix that. Finally, there is so much more research we need to do to understand which heat interventions work best. Within each of these, we have sub-goals. For example, potential cool spaces we're looking at are schools, transit corridors, and business districts. Parks are also an effective tool if they're well maintained and safe. So we're actively working with our departments of Parks and Recreation to improve play space, shade trees, water features, splash parks in those neighborhoods most exposed and sensitive to heat. The second section is called Staying Safe. Climate change will make the days hotter, nights warmer, and heat waves longer and more frequent. While combating the urban heat island can reduce risk, the district will still experience dangerous heat events. We can save lives by preparing for heat, raising awareness of the signs of heat stress and heat stroke, and ensuring all residents can easily find relief. So this section also includes a series of goals, and those fall into the categories of improving cooling centers, educating residents about heat risks, supporting safety at home, supporting safety outdoors, and ensuring clean and reliable power. We learned from community engagement that most people don't want to go to cooling centers, so we have strategies around how to make them more attractive spaces. We also need to do more heat education, as I've already talked about. We also learned that people who work outdoors face unique consequences. Finally, we know that there is a connection between heat and power outages, and we want to get in front of that. Like the other section, there are sub-goals within each of these categories. For example, under supporting safety at home, we want to explore maximum air temperature standards. So basically saying that if you are living in an apartment building, it has to maintain a temperature under this temperature. Cooling techniques education, like the fan graphic I showed earlier, is the second goal here. And we want to support expanded cooling assistance, like helping people pay for air conditioning. The final one, heat ambassadors, is to create a heat ambassador program, which we want to work with our sister agencies to produce. During snow events, the district activates volunteer snow teams to help residents with mobility challenges shovel their sidewalks. Can we do something similar with heat? Can volunteers check on those most sensitive to heat on hot days, like elderly people living alone? So wrapping up, I want to turn to a few examples that I hope we will continue to do now that we are in the implementation phase. So I know that this looks like a terrible 1980s computer graphic, but it's actually pretty sophisticated. In keeping with our goal to do more heat research, we worked with Vivek Chandas at Kappa Strategies to explore the following question. How can the district increase housing density and stick to our affordable housing goals without increasing the urban heat island? And which building design strategies result in the most cooling? Using our sensitivity map, we chose 3 properties, this is one of them, and looked at different cooling interventions. Each property was selected for a different reason. This property shown here, Carver Terrace, is an area where we do not expect huge renovations in the future. So we wanted to know what our options are to cool a neighborhood like this, given the existing built environment. For this site, we looked at doing two main interventions, adding a water feature and maximizing the tree canopy. So the first map is showing current conditions. The second map shows the increased tree canopy, and the third shows the water feature. Adding the water feature to Carver Terrace may result in a slight temperature reduction, but nothing really notable or significant. We cannot say exactly why. It may be too small or located in an area that is already cool. However, increasing tree canopy does seem to make a significant difference. The urban heat island mapping suggests that maximizing tree canopy at this site can increase thermal comfort, likely by creating more outdoor spaces that are shaded and through evapotranspiration. During the hottest time of the day, areas where trees were added appeared to see a heat decrease of about 5 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's significant. The second property that I'm going to show is this one, which is Greenleaf. This is a public housing property that is slated for rehab. Here we have two design drawings of what the future property might look like. One proposal came from the Housing Authority, and one proposal came from our Office of Planning. We compared the two. We also considered how an increase in trees could add additional benefits. So the first map shows existing conditions. The second map shows the Housing Authority plan that consists of very large high-rises. The third plan shows our Office of Planning's design that has multiple buildings with multiple different building heights. And we also, in this one, it's showing the expanded canopy on the side. We also looked at this without that expanded canopy. We found that adding more housing density to the site can also be associated with a decrease in heat over a 24-hour period because both of these new designs have more units than the original design. This is especially true in the modeled scenario with the more diverse building heights. Different building heights create more shade at this property. While all modeled scenarios showed some cooling, the design option in the image furthest to the right, so this one right here, provided the most benefits. While it may not decrease heat at all points on the site, adding shade tree decreases heat during the hottest part of the day. This seems especially true for trees added to the property's eastern side that were also shaded by the large buildings. So in summary, here are some of the big takeaways from that particular study. Trees are the most effective solution we found. Water features did not show a significant decrease in temperature. Neither did cooler green roofs or cool pavements when we modeled those. Importantly, we were only looking at impacts to outdoor thermal comfort at ground level. Second, we learned that we can increase housing density and combat the urban heat island. This means that we can achieve both of our goals of increasing affordable housing and cooling the city. Third, modeled data should be ground truthed. The modeled results look at a single day. Therefore, we do not know the cumulative impact of multiple high heat days in a row. I expect that during a heat wave, concrete will absorb and trap heat, amplifying the impact of these materials. While this study did not find that cooler green roofs were effective, that might be different in a multi-day scenario. Additionally, the study included a lot of assumptions, so it would be good to study real-life examples. And finally, while this study looked only at outdoor thermal comfort, cooling green roofs are still important for building efficiency and indoor comfort. Another example of implementation is how we're using our heat information in our resilient design guidelines. Over the last couple of years, the district has been creating resilient design guidelines to help building developers think through strategies for adapting to climate change risks. These outline a process for assessing risks and choosing climate exposure. The main thrust of it is shown in this flowchart here. So first, assess criticality to determine how cautious you should be. Second, assess life expectancy of the building to consider how far out you need to look when selecting a climate projection. Third, assess location to identify which climate risks apply. And fourth, select strategies for addressing those risks. So here are the tables that we include in those resilient design guidelines related to heat. So you can see that we have the different projections, the lower emission scenario, the higher emission scenario, and the different timelines. So that's how you select what heat assumptions you're going to use when using the resilient design guidelines. You'll also see here that we translated our heat information to cooling degree days, since that's what a building developer will actually use when making decisions about how to right-size their heating and cooling systems. The Resilient Design Guidelines also outline specific strategies for how to address heat and other risk factors. I invite you to explore the full guide if you want to learn more. I will end there. Thank you so much for letting me share our Keep Cool DC plan with you today. I look forward to our discussion, and please reach out with any questions.